Hey everyone. So the idea behind this specific video has kind of been running through my mind for the past year, and I've been thinking a lot about it lately, and I think I have enough information, I guess you could say, and that I would be able to spell it out to where I think it could be understood. Um, so as you're looking at this little diagram over here, uh, what I've been thinking about was the ups and downs of the timeline of the Bible. Okay, lately, over over the past year, I've kind of been reading through the Bible. Last year, I read from Matthew to Revelations, and then this year, I've been reading through, or I started in Genesis, and I've been reading forward, and I'm up to the book of Daniel today. I finished the book of Daniel today. And I kind of seen this up and down roller coaster with the relationship between God and man. You could put it with any group just about, but I'm mainly pertaining to the Israelites. Okay. And I'm also going to point out how the same up and down with the Israelites can reflect in our own lives. But we'll get to that in a minute. So, you start out the Bible in the book of Genesis, and you start out with Adam and Eve, and everything's perfect. It's the highest um, tier or pinnacle of what man can be. Okay, we're over the fish of the sea. We're over the birds of the air, the creatures of the land. Everything in nature is made for us. We have everything has the fear of us. Like it's the highest man can be, and it's in our closest relationship to God. All right. Then we have the fall, and uh, I'm racking my brain here for a second, but we basically fall from grace here, and we go down to this area where 99.9% of the world's population has become wicked, has forgotten God, and uh, I mean, literally, there was only one family left that found grace in God's eyes, and he decided to wash the world clean and start over again. And so we started this upward trend. Um, so, real quickly, I want to point out this proverb right here. Proverbs 1:7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Now, you're going to see this theme, okay, where when men forget to fear God, we start going downhill from there. When men begin to fear God, we start going uphill. All right. So now I could have named off a slew, okay, a plethora of examples here, but I just decided to choose a few to give you an idea. All right. So again, we have Adam and Eve, we have the fall, we go wickedness increases. This diagram is an inverse of a wickedness diagram. Okay, as uh, good increases, evil decreases. All right, as evil increases, good decreases. So at the time of the flood, I know it's obvious, but evil was maximized, all right, all the way to just one little speck of good being left, and that was enough for God to save, enough for Him to work with. From Noah, he started this new generation, and we start off following God, okay? And good, we're left with only good. So we start uptrending, and we get to Abraham and his generations of Jacob and Isaac, and these are people that they followed God. All right, and then uh, at some point they just start falling away, and they go into captivity. All right. So we become slaves to the world. Egypt was Israel's ruler. And God's done so many prophecies by this time, but he's now ready to get his righteous and um, basically work with them again. All right. So this is a long period of time, but the story of Exodus and their journey from Egypt to Canaan is it's such an amazing story, and there's so much information in there. It's just impossible to write down. But something I want you to keep in mind is the fear of the Lord. All right, these people, um, well, I think in a lot of my speaking, people might get or think that I have a negative outlook on life, a pessimistic outlook on life, or I may say things that sound negative, but really it stems from a fear of God, a reverent respect. Okay. In today's age, everyone's like, well, God understands me. He knows I'm trying. And that sounds a lot like excuses, and God really doesn't like those. um, I mean, the definition of sin, I believe it's by James in the New Testament, is for those who know what is right and do not do it, to him it is a sin. So that that doesn't leave much room for excuses in there. I mean, there's unintentional sin, which the Bible talks about. So somewhere in it's either Jeremiah or Ezekiel. I think it's in one of those books. It actually covers unintentional sins. But if you know what is right and you choose not to do it, that's a sin. Okay, and God really, really, really hates sin. Okay, so I want to try to live a blameless life as best to my ability. And speaking on that, I want to uh, just change this. Well, all right, I can leave this there for for right now. Sorry. But think about this as your personal life. Okay. Um, I I kind of think like up to about the age of 20, 21, I was pretty good, and then I had my fall, and I kind of I lost everything. I realized I was doing a lot of things wrong. I didn't know everything I was doing was wrong, but I basically had my fall, and I'm actually really thankful I had it at such a young age. I had my humbling, and I really started seeking God. And I mean, for my diagram, my flood and my Egypt would kind of be like the same little spot, and I've been gradually going up ever since. Um, but uh, but yeah, think about the Israelites, and when you read through the Old Testament, apply everything that happened to them, apply their principles to your own life. Okay, for example, while they were in the wilderness, coming out of Egypt, it says God fed them 3 times a day, yet they still doubted every day, excuse me, if God was going to feed them. So apply that to your own life. God is providing so much for me, but I can't see around the corner. Is God going to provide for me tomorrow? And I mean, when that hit me some years ago, I I kind of determined in myself I'm not going to live like the Israelites. Even when I can't see, when it doesn't make sense, I'm going to trust in God. And I think that was a big thing for me. It was a big growth, I suppose you could say. But you can look at all Old Testament examples, and find a way that they apply to your life. Um, do you do you feel like you're in captivity? Uh, did you make it to Canaan and you were doing great? And then what happened after Canaan? They lost the fear of the Lord. They were they were living a high time in their life. You know, if you read in the book of Kings and you get up to Solomon's reign, Solomon's reign was kind of like at the very top of what could be achieved. It says he was surrounded in peace on all sides. You know, King David was warring against everybody, and Solomon wasn't having wars against anybody. I mean, I think the first couple chapters of talking about Solomon, it basically says like he cleaned up some things in the kingdom, like killing a few people that were wicked. But then, like after that, it says he was the most prosperous person, most prosperous king, most prosperous nation that ever lived. I mean, I love the scripture that says that silver was as common as stones. I mean, goodness gracious. All the nations of that time of the earth, they all paid tribute to Israel. Israel was the top dog. And maybe you've been there in your own life where you felt like you were at your closest with God and just blessings were showering on you that you couldn't contain it. And I know that I've had some high points in my life. I wouldn't claim to be that high, but again, just applying it to your own life. But what happened at the end of Solomon's reign? He started marrying women from uh, other nations, and God specifically told the Israelites, don't marry women from those other nations because you'll start following after their gods. And that's what Solomon did. And from Solomon, it almost seemed like this decline, uh, probably to present day, you could almost say, uh, for the Israelite nation until Jesus Christ. But they did have some ups and downs in the books of Judges and stuff like that. But again, you just see this pattern of they have the fear of God and they go up to the top. Israelites become prosperous, and then they become so prosperous that it's almost as if they think they did it. And as I say that, I think of Nebuchadnezzar, because I just read the book of Daniel, and uh, he uh, God gave him authority over everything, and then he prophesied that he was going to lose it all because of his arrogance. And Nebuchadnezzar was walking out on his balcony one day, and he said, "Look at all that I've accomplished by my might." When all the passages leading up to this point, God has been saying, "I'm letting Nebuchadnezzar have all this. I'm letting him have it. I'm giving him this." So yeah, pride comes before a fall. I mean, I love how all these verses tie in together. But yeah, you keep the fear of the Lord. Okay? Keep away from pride. All right? And you'll watch your relationship with God grow, and you'll be surrounded with peace on all sides. You'll be surrounded with prosperity on all sides. And there's I want to read to you Proverbs 30 verses 8 and 9, uh, because as I started to realize this pattern in my own life, I came across this verse, and I was like, it, you might have heard people say it bore witness in my spirit as I want this. My flesh may not want this, but I know this to be true, and I want this. So, Proverbs chapter 30, verses 8, keep falsehood and lies far from me. He's asking this of God. Give me neither poverty nor riches, but give me only my daily bread. Otherwise I may have too much and disown you and say, who is the Lord? Or I may become poor and steal, so dishonor the name of my God. So when you're looking at this roller coaster on a personal level, you want to say, God, give me my daily bread. Supply for me my needs. I don't want to have too much because I may forget you. And I don't want to have too little because I'll be saying, where the heck are you? Okay? Excuse me. And Psalms 37, there was one verse I wanted to find in there because it was similar to the previous verse, and it was Psalms 37 verses 16. Better the little that the righteous have than the wealth of many wicked. So again, you see this, um, like too much of the world can be the start of your downfall from God. Okay, so but I say I wanted to pick that one verse, but I started reading it, and just the whole chapter is just phenomenal. So take the time, go over and read Psalms 37, because it's going to agree with a lot of what I'm trying to say here. And also, since I've just read the book of Daniel and it's really fresh in my mind, I think it's really cool. You can also see this pattern in the book of Daniel, but honestly, I could probably say that for most of the books of the Bible. Um, but I want to leave with one last thought. Um, the reason I write, or one of the reasons I wrote this diagram out, is because I I visualize, or I imagine, I don't know, I put everything into pictures, okay? Um, and I like math, even though I wish I was better at it, but that's beside the point. Um, so we're just going to do this again on a bigger scale. I'll tell you what, let's see, start here and go up. Now, I want you to think about this. Again, the previous example was with the Israelites. Now, so you can say that this diagram applies to nations. So how does America stand up? I don't like what it sees, but or what I see. Here's what I'll say. We claim to be a godly nation. On our money is in God we trust. But things are increasing that, like I said earlier in the video, when wickedness increases, good decreases. It's as light and dark. And after reading all these books of the Bible, I dare say it's made me afraid for America. Maybe that's not the best word I could use, but it's the only word that comes to mind. Nations that honored God became prosperous, and nations that dishonored God, um, God might leave them alone, or he might wipe them out, or he just did whatever he wanted to them. So where's America gonna be? All right. But what I want to point out is something. Um, um, there's a lot of division in our country. Okay, but let's look at something. Uh, Abortion. All right, reading through the Old Testament, um, there was countries that sacrificed their children. And I know you're thinking, well, abortion isn't sacrificing their children, but I think the same thing kind of applies. God spent a ton of scriptures saying he did not like them killing the children. Okay, he really, really, really didn't like it. And I'm saying it like that because there was just a slew of verses um, that he would say stuff like, I did not ask you to do this, and it never even entered my mind. Okay? God does not like abortion. So if abortion's going up, then good is going, or if wickedness is going up, then good is going down. If you look at um, gays in this country, 50 years ago, it was very shunned upon. In fact, don't quote me on years. I'm terrible with years, but I'm just saying a while back, and for a long time, um, homosexuality had a negative outlook. But if you look at it today, it's becoming more accepted and more accepted and more accepted. So, yeah, I'm gonna get sued here. I'm gonna write gay. Um, God called homosexuality an abomination in his sight. And our whole country is becoming okay with it. All right? Yeah, that kind of scares me, okay? Because I kind of live in this country and I don't want no Sodom and Gomorrah stuff going on. Um, and there, I heard if you just listen, okay, you you'll hear things here and there. Okay, I was listening to something, I don't know, radio, I think it was, but they said that every year, or maybe it's every 4 years when the presidential elections, but they were going off of some ballot, okay, and they said that every time this ballot is run under the section for religion, where you list off Christianity, or I don't really know other religions, Buddhism, Muslim. I don't have any idea what's on this list. But they said that the section for other goes up a little bit every year. I really want you to think on that. Okay? America is becoming more paganistic. I heard somebody say that like a year or two ago. I never really put any thought to it. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're exactly right. America accepts every God you want. You want to be Muslim? Bring it on. Want to be Buddhist? Bring it on. Hindu? Bring it on. What we're accepting of every religion. Yeah. God never liked that. In fact, if you read through the Old Testament, and I mean, isn't it like the first commandment, you shall have no other gods before me? Okay, I think that should symbolize right there how an importance on the subject. Um, but oftentimes, as I was reading through, I think it's like the book of Judges, and probably in the Kings somewhere, but it seems like every other chapter, okay, it says that the Israelites stopped serving God and started serving other gods. It was almost as if there were a lot lesser things that God saw, but he tolerated. Okay? Okay, you got some homosexuals in there. I'll tolerate it. I don't like it, but I'm not going to punish the whole group for that minority. Okay? But when you get a large group not serving God and serving other gods, when you say with your mouth that you're serving God, or your nation says that you're serving God, God got really angry with them and that was the Old Testament. He punished them. They got the fear of God put in them, and they started serving him again. So serving other gods, I don't know where to put this. I'm not making anything smart here. I'm just writing down stuff. But as you can see, it's all leading that direction. Um, and unless something really changes, I'm very afraid for America, for this direction it's heading. Every year it accepts wickedness a little bit more. It becomes desensitized to it a little bit more. Um, and I think I'm going to leave you with that thought. I hope that you pray for America and do every little thing you know to do to spread the gospel, okay? Because if a large enough portion of America loses the fear of God, um, uh, because I like to think that the reason why God's being merciful towards America right now is because there's enough righteousness in there that he's not going to punish the entire group. I don't know. That's my speculation. But just reading through the Old Testament, it kind of seemed to follow a pattern. And uh, again, if you look closely, there were times where God, he didn't show up every day. Okay, when you think of the Israelites coming out of Egypt, God was there every day. I mean, he was a cloud by day, fire by night. And then once they got into Canaan, he was like, all right, I'm going to go sit in the temple. Y'all be good. you know? And then the world just started getting wicked again. He's like, okay, I'm gonna show up and correct y'all and get y'all back on the right path again. So uh, with the world, I feel like we've become very scientific oriented. Like science is a huge thing right now. And everybody believes in evolution. Our school teaches we came from apes, and the Earth was made 350 billion years ago. And that's being commonly accepted. And with each generation that goes through school, with each grade that goes through school, we become more accepting of that thought process that we came from evolution and didn't come from God. So, uh, one last quick thought. At the bottom, generally, I can't remember where I wanted to throw this in, but when you're, as I said, as wickedness increases, the relationship with God decreases, and at the bottom symbolizes um, the poorest relationship with God and the most wicked. Okay, down here, the Christians, believers, are the fewest, and we are generally hunted down and killed. I really don't want to be there. So, um, we're living in a good time right now. Okay, I'm not being hunted every day. I'm not running for my life. We're living in a good time, but don't get caught up in that. All right, to where like these verses, they get forgotten. We lose the fear of God because everything is going so well. I don't want that to happen to anybody. Don't lose the fear of God. Okay? So I'm gonna leave you with that. I love you all. Pray for America, pray for its leaders. Stand up and stand up for God and do what you know to do, what you feel led to do. Um, in studying, seeking after God. Okay, because I think that we're very quickly approaching a time period that's going to be very bad. And if it's not my generation, I feel like it's going to be really quickly after my generation that we might get to a time where Christians are hunted again. But I don't really mean to end on a negative note. I love you all. Keep the faith, keep the fear of God, seek after God, even though everything's going great in your life. And I love you, and I'll see you in another video.